Good evening and welcome. I want to welcome you, a warmly welcome for all you out there that are listening in and going to be listening in to a secret. And you probably don't know what the secret is, or maybe has some indications. Um, there is a secret by that. Um, I'm here to talk about fighting CPS and getting your children back. And hopefully, I can provide you in this hour here of this particular show. We are broadcast through Facebook, on YouTube. Our shows are 7 days a week at at 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific Standard Time, and at 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I'm broadcasting out of Southern California, but I know I reach everybody out there. In my early morning show, I had in Australia, person in Australia, they had CPS problems. So not only is it a U.S. problem, but I think it's worldwide, and I think some of it uh, is the fault of the system itself. Now, the person that is producing this show is Vincent W. Davis and Associates. It's a law firm with many talented lawyers for many legal matters. Vincent W. Davis is a family law attorney. He's very professional. He's been doing this a long time. He knows how to fight CPS. And if you don't know what CPS is, Child Protection Services, which is a part of social services. Anyway, he has sued CPS and won cases. He goes Southern California, Northern California, of any of the 50 states. It all depends on how complex your case is and how far away is his fee. He has a sliding scale of his fee. Right now, he's offering a free consultation of 30 minutes up to an hour to talk to him about strategies of your case, your CPS case, and how to fight them and how to get your children back. So it's really a win-win. If you're out there looking for an attorney, he's one that you should consider. And after listening to him, you may want to retain him. Now, my office number is 888-888-6582. And that's the number you would call to schedule a time with Mr. Davis. Mention my name, Bob Pace, so that you get scheduled and so forth. Another thing you can do, the same number, 888-888-6582, is be a guest speaker on the show. From time to time, I have people from all walks of life, all CPS matters throughout the United States. They're as far north as Maine, as far south as Florida. It's all different types of cases. Social Services is a federal agency that is supposed to help out families in need, elderly people in need, new immigrants in need. One of the things, it has a branch called Child Protection Services. It may be called something else, but if it deals with protecting the children, that is social service. They're required to be a watchdog for our children and families. And they make out an allegation um, of the of why you might be involved and someone calls in. They're going to investigate it. Now, another thing you can do to interact with this show is you can call in live at 626-698-0990. I'll take your call. I'll put you on the show. All I ask is that, you be patient and explain your story from the beginning to the end, and how many children it involves. Is it involves multiple family members? Does it involve a partner? Are you a single mom, single dad? Is it a custody case? You're fighting over the children, and what are the things are? And maybe you could share with us some things that you're going through that I'll try to answer. I'm not an attorney, but I've been fighting CPS for 9 years. And one of the ways I've been doing it is by doing these talk shows. And I firsthand went through CPS. It was a nightmare. I'm not usually the norm, but I started experiencing when I was 65 years old. I'm 74 now. So, and my case lasted 3 years, involved my three younger children who Two of them got back. And as I mentioned earlier about Vincent Davis, you need an attorney. I did not use an attorney. I tried to do it on my own. And I unfortunately didn't have the funds. And very foolishly, I attempted to fight CPS. My experience and the experience I've heard from listeners is that they're crooked, they lie, they're not transparent, um, they say all kinds of storytelling that will get you in a lot of problems there. Um, hold on one. Okay, I'm back. I'm back. I had to take care of a personal matter. There might be some interruptions or anything like there. But I did not get an attorney, and that was my biggest mistake. It's like trying to do open heart surgery without getting a doctor. CPS requires a lawyer. You have to have the knowledge of the laws and have to be able to navigate through the system. They are a $1 billion business. They make money children and keeping your children in custody. They try to steal your children. They're the only legal agency I know that can steal children and get away with it. But the longer they keep the children in, the more money they get from the federal government and from the state funds. So keep that in mind when you're working your case. I know it's hard to get an attorney. Another way you can interact with the show is that you can text in a comment. There's a part down there at the bottom of your screen that says you can post a comment. Please state your first name. You don't have your last name. And if you don't want to use your name, you can use an alias name, but please use something that is professional. Also, make sure you tell me the state you're from or the country you're from. It's important. And then ask your question and see what you have. So, with that being said, there's the ways you can interact with the show. You can call in a schedule appointment. You can call that number, my office number, and talk to me live on the show. You can also text a comment to me, and I will try to help you right now. Um, and some of you are listening. If you've tried to set up an appointment and you've not gotten your appointment, try the call again. Ask for Jody. Say that Bob Pace sent you, and then reschedule your appointment with Mr. Davis. I apologize if any of you have been trying to talk to him. He's very, very busy, and he's in high demand. Now, um, for the CPS part of things, all I can do is relate my experience of other people on the show, and help you out on your road. One of the things you have to understand is it starts with allegations. And that area of allegations is the hardest thing to deal with. Why? Because the allegations sometimes are not true. The allegations are sometimes exaggerated. And sometimes the allegations were revenge against one person trying to do the other person. They want to alienate you. Alienation happens in a lot of areas. And these allegations are made. In my case, my wife's side of the family made the allegations. And it wasn't until after the case was over I found out about that. But they'll make the allegations. The only problem is with the allegations is that when an allegation is made, they are believed to be true. And therefore, you're up the creek without a paddle, because suddenly, if they say your child's eating drugs, they're going to think you did it, and they say you're not protecting your children. So it's important. I think they should change it. My feeling is if someone makes an allegation in writing and signs their name to it, and they can be kept confidential, then that allegation most likely will be true, or to some degree of trueness. But I've had a lot of allegations, including my own, that were falsified, nothing to cause trouble and rift and try to steal our kids, try to steal your kids. It could be a spouse that's very revengeful, spouse that wants control of the kids. It wasn't too much of you know, um, a family matter of settling the kids. It's really tough. The people that suffer the most are your kids. They suffer the most. So when the allegations come in, CPS is going to try to call, try the right to stop by your home to investigate it. There's a period of time where they investigate. They don't take away the kids unless it's like a 911 call where someone's been shot and the kids are there, and right away they want to take the kids and protect them. Social services wants to protect family. They want to protect the elder people. They want to protect the kids. They want to protect battered people, battered men, women, whatever. Um, so they're there for a good reason. The only problem is they're out of control, especially in the CPS area. The courts that I saw, the dependency courts, where you are tried with your matter, are corrupt. And what I mean by that is that in my area where I was living in Southern California, the courts down here don't allow the parents to sit in during their talk about your case. You may come in for a brief minute or two to hear the outcome of something they want to impose on you, but you don't see how the attorney's performing, you don't see the social workers' attorneys, you don't see the lies or anything that takes place. That's wrong. That's wrong. This is the second thing that needs to be changed. Parents should be allowed in the courtroom. So should the children. This is the sad part. They try to protect the children, but they use it for the wrong reasons. They think they'd be harmed by going to court to see their parents. They make every parent a bad parent. All parents are not bad. Just maybe some judgments were made wrong, but they can be repairs. That's what this thing called family reunification is. They're supposed to restore the family. And I don't believe that CPS believes in that. I think all they look at is how can they get money out of this family. And it's not the family that are paying for it, but they do pay in a roundabout way. It's the money per child they get for keeping them in shelters, group homes, foster care, and later adoption. It's really sad when they try to adopt your child or convince your child or alienate your child. Alienation is used a lot. It's used especially in cases with parents going through divorce or custody battles where one parent will alienate the other parent. But CPS will try to alienate your kids from you. They don't allow you to see your kids or talk to your kids except if there's monitored visitations, and they always exaggerate one kid, one allegation exaggerated. And so they really are like that. Now, CPS by law needs to investigate every allegation. And allegations can also come, besides family members and friends and ex-partners or whatever, they can also come from professional people like school teachers, like policemen, firemen, a bus driver. If any professional people sees a child who looks like they got excessive bruise marks or that is wearing clothes too big for them, like they lost a lot of weight, or their skin or their body is really not good, the hair is not kempt, then they go to report something like that. School teachers do the same thing. They miss a lot of classes and do anything like that. So those are where those allegations come in, and a lot of them are explainable or something. The parents going through a hard time, they're homeless, there are things. And so what social services do is supposed to help people, not tear them down, not tear apart a perfect home or a beautiful home, in such as my case. I was torn apart, brutally torn apart. Exaggerations were made so bad. It was the worst nightmare I've ever been through in my life. And I have two groups of children. I have an older group of children, three of them, they're doing quite well in life. But my younger group of children, and it was my second marriage, and I had a beautiful wife who loved children. I love children. We'd like to have children, and we had a beautiful home. The home was one of those things that people would love. I miss that home. I had to get rid of my home and sell it because I needed money to fight my case to get my kids back. But it wasn't because we were doing drugs. It wasn't because we were beating up our kids. One reason was is that because I lost my job, and that was a hard thing to do. I had a perfect storm brewing. I'm 60 years old. I lose my job through no fault of my own. The economy, the banks are taking a tank. Um, California is going bankrupt, and so the work I was doing for the state of California, I had government contracts. They were held as public funds, and IOU was written for me because I got a lot of public work construction. I do civil engineering and heavy highway, and so it was really bad. On top of that, my parents were taking a turn for the worse. They're old, and they were dying, and they wanted to liquidate their home and get their belongings out and so forth. And I tried to help them. Of course, at that time, when I lost my job, I had my retirements, which was cut in half. I had my, fees and so forth, savings, and I was able to live a somewhat respectable life with some help from social services to make those ends meet. I was still looking for work, and I tried to find work. I did find work, by the way, but then that work ended up uh, less and less jobs to do, to the point they said they had no work for me, and they said that we can no longer employ you. And I think the reason is you're just too old. People don't like old people working. I don't know what it is wrong about old people. We have no control over old people, and I don't feel I'm old. I don't feel I'm old. I'm supposed to be 74 years old mathematically and biologically, but I feel, 30 years younger. I feel strong, and I'm able, my brilliant mind, and thinking on that. So it was tough. The perfect storm happening, but because I had my parents' belongings in the house, instead of in storage, it suddenly became more cluttered in my home, and they thought the clutter, the stacking of boxes and the furniture, would endanger the kids. You see, CPS is supposed to protect, or social services is supposed to protect children from abuse and neglect. Those are the two areas that are supposed to protect the children. Abuse can be physical abuse. It could be where a parent uses excess of corporate punishment, or a parent gets upset and throws a kid against the wall, cause bodily harm. That's physical abuse. It can be one parent beating on a kid or so forth on that. Another form of physical abuse, and people don't really think of it, is domestic abuse, which is where yelling takes place. You're not supposed to yell in front of your children. That is the number one no-no. And when you yell in front of children, they suddenly are pitting mom and dad against each other. The children have to choose, and then it gets worse if the yelling is continued loud. That's domestic violence. That needs to stop, needs not to be done. That's one thing to correct it. Yes, my wife and I did argue, and I'll be honest about that. But uh, we were able to work on that. And, there's a thing called timeout. Now, timeout is something we use with children when they do a bad behavior. Sport teams use timeouts all the time to either regroup, reposition. So a timeout with parents is good if they're arguing. A timeout with your boss is good if you're arguing. Because what you do is you say timeout and walk away, and then what you do is that you um, regroup and come back and try to work it out. You try to work it out. Um, so um, domestic violence is yelling in front of the kids. So that's a no-no. So if you're doing that, they can intercede and say you're abusing your kids. There's also sexual abuse, and that can be in a lot of forms. There's one called gratification, where a parent uses a child sexually. That's a no-no. You don't do that. There's another one where they use the kids in pictures and sell pictures in child pornography. That's a no-no. Then there's ones where a parent will touch a kid, and you can't do that. Again, children are young. They're very precious, and we have so much problem with our children right now, with the mass shootings in schools, the um, the use of the cell phone and all the social media. Today, Congress was uh, had a hearing with all the CEOs of social media companies: TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., etc. Because they were asking them, "What are you doing to protect our kids?" It's so liberal. And when we give a phone to a child, and now people are giving phones, and the kids are in elementary school, they have an easy access to the internet. And there's got to be protective measures that the internet's got to do. But one of the most protective measures is as parents, don't give the phone or take the phone away if they abuse it. The same thing with computers. I'm not saying they don't need a phone or don't need a computer. There's good usage, and it can be good because you get a lot of valuable knowledge. But we as parents got to be better at uh, with the management of our phones with our kids and computers and so forth. So that is really, really, really important there. So we as parents got to do so. Now, um, the another thing is that there's also the sexual part where kids are taken overseas and put into prostitution or work as slaves in homes for domestic work. So that's what social service and CPRs are trying to protect and so forth on that. Doing drugs with your kids. You can't, recreation drugs, any kind of drugs, it's illegal. I know there's some things about marijuana, and but it's risky. You don't want to have any drugs in the home. No anything with anything on drugs. No to drugs, because that will get you in a lot of trouble with CPS. And I'm telling you, once you're caught by CPS, they will use it to the max. They will hammer you and hurt you so bad. They really will. It's a really hard thing here. So I strongly recommend that you just not, if a question about drugs, don't have them lie around. You can't have kids ingest them. They harm them. They can't have kids taking drugs. It's the kids are given drugs too early on. They're exposed to it on the social media, and there's no control, and the parents need to be involved. And with that being said, we switch over to neglect. Now, the area of neglect is areas where maybe they weren't provided clothing or warm housing. There was no utilities to keep warm, no food in the refrigerator. That's all neglect. That's forms of neglect. I did have neglect because my parents' belongings would create a problem for my children, even though they were 9, 12, and 15. The boxes were stacked 3 boxes high. They could possibly hurt the children. So um, we were charged with neglect. That's what we were charged with. Um, and they used quite a trick to get that in there. They were on a vindictive mode to try to get something that wasn't there. It was my wife's family members that was pushing them. Um, when we got married 30 years ago, um, their parents didn't show up at our wedding. So we, to this day, still don't understand why, because my parents were there. Wedding's an important time and stuff. So, and we talked about having the wedding back where they live, but they didn't like me. They didn't like my wife, and she later on found out that she was abused. She was abused and neglected through her childhood. And we didn't really know that till later when we started seeing all these examples and things. We learned a lot about that. So it was really kind of hard about that. Again, I want to remind everybody out there that you want to text me a message. I'll talk about your subject. Make sure you put your state or country you're from, your name, and what you're talking about. And with that being said, um, you could text it and review it and get back to you. Another way to interact on this show is to call in to my phone at 626-698-0990. That's my office phone. I will answer it, and I can put you on the live show, and you can talk instead of hear me talk. The other way is to call in at 888-888-6582 and ask to be a guest on the show. And if you ask to be a guest on the show, they will schedule a time and a date that would help you. So we got someone here. Okay, come home, Pixie. Okay, I imagine Pixie is a name of your child. I don't know what state you're calling from, but it's more common than usual that CPS would take kids in actual more safe and stable homes. Yes, you're true. You're true on that, Pixie. What state are you from, Pixie? Do you want to call in? Do you want to call in? Also, I'd like to further point out that we have an attorney. His name is Vincent W. Davis. He's a family law attorney. He is trial experience. He's a professional. I've been doing this a long time. He works in Southern California, but he will go to Northern California. Okay, Pixie is from Texas. All right, Pixie. If you could tell me what your story is, that would be great. Um, it'd be great to tell your story. I'm going to show everybody what you said so far. So she made the comment that they attack more stable and safe homes. They want money, and maybe people are caught off guard why they do that. I don't know. Um, and she's from Texas. Okay, she's gonna call in. Um, Pixie, can you call me at my office number? Hold on a second. I need to put it back up. There it is. Please call 626-698-0990 and I'll put you on speakerphone, okay? I'd love you to talk about your case from Texas. That's 626-698-0990 and you can call in. You want to call in now. You want to call in now. All right, she says one moment, and she's going to call in. That sounds good. So anyway, while she's waiting to call in, here she is. Okay. Hello, Pixie. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm going to put you on speakerphone. Is that better?
No problem.
Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you very.
All right. Can you still hear me now? I'm going to take my headset off and work off my computer. Can you hear yourself?
Yes, I don't have a problem hearing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to let you talk to your story. While you're doing that, I'll be right back. Okay.
Okay,
Go ahead and start your story. I'll be right back.
no problem. So, so basically, what happened to me when I was residing in Texas, because I no longer reside there, um, was that I had been I had been investigated by CPS back in like around, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they started their investigation in February of 2016. And it happened because it was my fault. I believe in really taking responsibility, right? Um, especially especially when with everything that you guys will eventually find out what happened. And the case the case started basically because I took the wrong decision to punish my child, and I grew up in a very tough situation as a kid, and I decided that I think that it would be a very good um, punishment or a good disciplinary action to teach my child how playing with fire is dangerous, or playing with the stove flame is dangerous, or um, causing the chimney to have an ongoing run of natural gas without flame. And so I grabbed my strainer, and I am not here to cover anything of I'm not here to cover or to sugarcoat anything that I did, because again, as I phrased earlier, As I stated earlier, I am here to be open and honest and take responsibility of my actions in the past, and I still apply that today as an adult. In the same way too, where I teach that to my kids, because me doing that, making the choice that hey, I'm gonna teach my kid how how hot things can burn and whatnot. I took my strainer. I took my strainer and I put it at the like at a certain level where it's the general level that I would use to straighten my hair, and I clamped or I didn't clamp, but I try to teach my child, feel this strainer and you're going to learn that playing with hot stuff can burn. And unfortunately, trying to do that to my child, it turned out that he had more sensitive skin than me, so I caused but second degree burns to my child. And by February, like I had stated at the beginning of this conversation, by February I had already had an investigator at the kids' school questioning the kids. I already had a police officer from the county investigating my kids. They already were building a case against me, and it was to a point where I was like, okay, I'm going to cooperate with CPS, and I did. I cooperated with them, and unfortunately, cooperating with them put me in a position where instead of getting the help that I needed, I ended up catching a case, and I mean like a criminal case, which was assault on a minor, and then I ended up having a case through the the civil court fighting custody of my kids because they were taken from me on March 16, 2016, and they took them from me, um, and they placed them into a foster care, right? And unfortunately, there was family members in a different side, in a different part of the family. So like not a secondary family,
Okay.
more like a fourth generation of the family that got involved and requested the judge to terminate or to temporarily suspend my visitation with my kids. And the judge listened. The judge took count of that, and I lost for 4 years and a half visitations with my kids. I could not see them. I could not write to them. I couldn't FaceTime them. I couldn't speak to them on the phone. It was torment. It was torment for both my children and for me. And the reason why I even decided to call you or to call your live chat is because I want to say that a lot of parents could find themselves in a position like that, and you might have made a mistake like I did, but when you stand your ground and you don't have a criminal background, you don't even have a background with the city or with the county. When you don't have a background, not even for school fights, because you were in middle school at some point before you became an adult, or not, or even enroll as a student, because I was a student enroll in college, and I was a like a like a leadership representative of my college, where I would have quarterly meetings for the students and having to do live presentations and stuff at my college campus. When you have that kind of background, and you know that hey, you know what, and you recognize that you made a mistake, and you lift your head and you tell and you pray to the good Lord to forgive you for your sins, and you know what, there is absolutely nobody in this world, not even a judge, that can hold that accountable against you. And the reason why I state this so solidly and with so much authority is because I was terminated from my parental rights after a long fight with CPS. Right? I was terminated. I was terminated. My kids were put um, into a broadcasting status for adoption. Then after that, I was told that there would be no family members on the mother's side to adopt the children or on the father's side to adopt the children. It would have to be total disconnect, adoption of family members who will make themselves available to adopt my kids. And that was an order by a judge. Now, I want to say another thing on here, and that is when you are going to plan something that's going to go to the next level of the battle, because it's a battle for your family, it's a battle for your children, it's the battle of the center of your family, you don't share those details with anyone other than an attorney. And the reason why I say that is because when I got myself together and I decided, you know what, I am gonna fight, I'm gonna appeal my case, I didn't tell anybody. And as many times as the children's ad litem attorney was asking me how you're gonna fight the case, I never told him anything. When the county attorney for the civil case came up to me and said, you know what, are you gonna fight the case? Are you gonna take it to the appeals? I never said anything. When the caseworker came up to me and asked me after I was terminated, they asked me, are you gonna fight the case? And there's a lot of details in between too, because that it just takes so long for me to share. But there's a lot of things, like for example, that I was presented before we started trial. I was presented with 3 documents. The first one was, hey, you know what? Surrender the kids, surrender your rights, and we can, and that's one choice. The second choice is just surrender the kids and keep your rights, or let's start trial today. So me, these are my kids. And I believe that my kids were given by God, and only God takes those kids from me. So I was like, well, you know what? When they left me to figure out what my choice was going to be, guess what paper I signed? Oh, I signed, we're fighting through all the way. We're going to fight this case even without an attorney. I ended up hiring an attorney here in Texas. Wonderful attorney, great family attorney for the city of Houston, for Deer Park, for Airland. I found a great attorney that represents in Brazoria County. So he goes to different counties around the Houston area to represent parents that are being persecuted by CPS. And I was fortunate enough to hire this guy, to hire my attorney, and he picked up the case and studied my case in 10 days, because it was ordered after I had signed off on those papers that trial would start in 10 days. And it took us to go to trial 7 days straight, nonstop, from the morning to the evening for 7 days. And then on December 1st, the final verdict came in saying that I was going to be terminated from my parental rights. It was I had already made up my mind that I was going to take the case to the Court of Appeals, and I did. And I had 3 judges, and I'll give you at the time, and you guys can do your homework, but in 2019, between 2018 and in 2019, there was a judge at the Court of Appeals called Judge Brown. Him and 3 additional judges of the panel took a look at my case, accepted my case, and they called it all parties. And when I mean all parties, it was me, my appellant attorney, my family attorney, my criminal attorney, my obviously each one of them having their additional help there, because they all have like additional other attorneys that are constantly just either one taking notes, making calls, documenting something. So and then of course their attorneys, for like instance the county, the city of Houston County had to have their own. We had to bring that attorney in along with his attorney. Then we had to have the CPS caseworker's attorney, who also represented for the manager or the supervisor of her that came into the Court of Appeals. We had the children's ad litem presented there in court as well with his attorney. So you're talking about attorneys that need representation with appellant attorneys there. So when you added up the numbers, and I'm not exaggerating my numbers, but they were about 16 of them against me. When I first walked in, I didn't have anybody representing me other than me and my appellant attorney, because I didn't know that any of the rest of the attorneys were going to be coming in to help, to step up, to um, to take care of me. I didn't know because nobody shared that information with me. I walked in, I sat down. Um, Obviously, the courthouse for the appellant attorney at the appellant courthouse is completely different from the city and from the criminal because for some reason it just looks a lot more fabulous, I would say. But I walked in, I sat down, I wasn't nervous. All I said to myself when I first walked in, I said, you know what? The many times that I lost my sleep over my children, today they're gonna. I know last night they've lost their sleep because I brought them in here. And finally, my case was presented in front of the three judges. The judges asked for all the parties to stand up that had been against me, and they asked them. They were like, "Who are you? Talk to me. Like, what is your role in this case?" And they were like, "Oh, well, I'm the children's attorney. My name is Bobby." And then the three judges asked, "Did you ever did you guys ever look into the documents that are stating in here?" And he said no. And they were asked, "Well, why not? And did you ever look into the statements for this?" No, we didn't. And this is when across every single person involved in my case, the opposing party, the party that said that, you know what, we're doing what's right for these kids. And sure enough, my case was then taken by the three judges, and they said, you know what, we completely disagree with the grounds you guys found to terminate this parent. We're going to reverse the case. So what happened? That CPS and the attorney, the appellant attorney that represents them, along with everybody's attorney, they're like, well, we disagree with the three judges, so we're asking to take the case to the Supreme Court. So we took the case to the Supreme Court, and now it wasn't three judges; it was 9 judges involved. And at this point is where it's where we just find ourselves in a position where now the 9 judges wants to know who apologized to the mother, in this case me. And nobody can say anything about it. Nobody can stand up and say, you know what, I apologize to the mother. And after that, the case was taken back to the civil court, and within 24 hours, I was giving my children back.
Wow.
And that was a marvelous case.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the best story I heard yet about anybody winning. The key to that, though, it sounds like you had an attorney. It's too hard to fight cases like that by yourself.
Yeah, and it was, but I wasn't afraid.
Right.
I knew that I had done everything right.
Right. Well,
everything that they asked me like the family plan.
Yeah, I have a couple questions I'd like to maybe to clarify to the listeners to you. Initially, when you're were doing punishment about was this both? How many children did this involve? 1, 2, or what?
On the punishment, it was only 1 children, but it was
okay.
4 of my kids that were.
So you had 4 kids that were minors, less than 18, right?
Yeah. So the
and then
range between 6,
one of
7,
them,
8, and 9.
One of them, you wanted to make an impression upon them because parents would do this all the time, which it is wrong. There are better methods, but we are not born with a manual of how to raise our kids or how to take care of our kids or how to do relationships or how to deal with CPS. So it is hard. Some parents, when they are cooking on a stove, they tell their kids do not touch, it's hot, and they'll sometimes take their fingers to feel how hot the stove is. And to me, that is not a right way to do it. A right way to.
And it wasn't.
And again, they're trying to protect you, but they're going to go overboard because they say, aha, how can we get $1 billion? I mean, CPS is a money making thing, and they want your kids to be adopted. They want to terminate your rights. And they thought, oh, goody, goody, goody. Here we got a dumb parent. I'm not saying you're dumb, but a parent that had maybe overstepped. Yeah, and so they're going to sit there and throw the book and lie and cheat and everything else, and somehow you lucked out because you got your kids back, which is important, and your children are all right. It sounds like, was the boy, his injuries fully recovered?
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, of course, 100%. And a burn specialist way before they even took him from me, and they ruled it out. Hey, the healing of the burn is going accordingly, and they signed off. The doctor signed off on documents that there was no infection, there was nothing wrong with it, that I had taken the right approach to make sure that he was treated when I had burned
Yeah.
him, and those are some of the things that kind of backed up everything in the case because they kept saying no, the cut was infected, this and that, and there was neglect even more after the burn, and just a lot of things that they
Well,
threw based
how'd they start off the investigation? Was a teacher reporting the wound to CPS?
yes, yes,
Okay,
through the
yeah,
school.
by law, if they notice anything unusual with kids, they're going to look for it now because there's a lot of kids that are harmed purposely. There's children like babies screaming to yell, and the father is so upset he'll take the child and throw it against the wall. Um,
Yeah,
you know,
and if I may throw another thing in there too, that I think a lot of parents when they send up to certain things that they teach at the school, and they're like completely against what you teach at home. And I'll give you an example because I have my kids in a public school where they were teaching my kids to go green. They were teaching my kids to, you know what, if you don't feel like you're a boy, then you can identify as a girl. So I would go to the school and I would confront them and tell them, do not be teaching that stuff to my kids.
yeah,
Do
there's been a
not
big,
waste
that's
your
been a
time doing
big,
that.
big convers. Yeah, that's a big conversation.
and
I
and
mean,
and you become a target as a parent, a protective parent. So when you make a mistake, they're ready to devour your family.
well, that's why they have school boards and PTAs. So hopefully, uh, voice opinion. That's where you should have voice opinion. If they're suddenly trying to teach your kids something, then you bring it up to the PTA or the school board. School boards meet all the time, and that's the appropriate time to bring that up. But
Yeah,
yeah, I can understand that because the public schools, your kids are spending more time in school than they are with you. If you think about it, if they're in school at
exactly.
8 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock, uh, that's 6 hours of their time. If they have 8 hours of sleep, that's 14 hours, and there's only 24 hours in a day. So, um, uh, the school does play a big influence on there. So the teacher reported it. By law, they have to investigate it. But did you show them the medical report from the doctor?
Yeah, so they actually, they ended up, after they take custody of the kids, they have the right, because they have custody of the kids, they have the right to obtain any medical disclosure information. And I had already provided that to them before they took my kids,
Right.
and they still, they minimized it. They
Did they
they
did they take
minimized that
away your
information.
rights right away? Did they take away your rights right away?
No, it took roughly about 3 years and a half.
Right. Okay.
Because
Okay. So you still had your educational rights, your medical rights, but the kids were taken from you. What was your plan, your safety plan? Where was the child being placed?
all of my kids were placed into the foster care, and they were even
Right
broken
away into
in
the
different
foster
times.
care? They didn't try group home or a family member. They can stay with your family member.
And they did try, but after they disclosed to those families that it could take a whole year to 2 years, a lot of the family members were discouraged.
Yeah. Now, this may be a little off the point, but I want all the listeners to know out there. Are you a Native American Indian heritage in your family? Are you there with that?
No, no, I'm just one.
Okay.
I was born and raised in the United States, but my
Well,
family originally my parents were illegal immigrants that traveled from Mexico into
the
Texas.
reason why I bring that up is that there was a law passed in 1979, ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act of 79, which said that if Native American Indian children are involved in CPS, that CPS makes all attempts to have the tribe take care of their own because the tribe, as a government, is not the government can't set on their lands. The tribe takes care of their own. And the reason why I bring that up, sometimes when you don't have a family member stay, the tribe will take care of them and help you through your process of, plan or where it is, because they don't lie and cheat as much as the CPS does. And so I was bringing that up in case any listeners out there, if you are registered or could be registered as a Native American Indian, there's another alternative. It's the ICWA Act of 1979. And you can look that up and so forth and see what that says.
Well, thank you for sharing that with me. If I ever get to meet anyone in that who could fall within that status, I'm more than willing to share that with you.
I tried to do it with me because I'm a Lakota Sioux, and the Rosebud Reservation, where my great great grandmother lived, there was no records. I mean, I had her white man's name, but I didn't have her Indian name, and they don't write records that well. But I have pictures of my uh, great grandfather, who was a Norwegian man from Bergen, Norway, and she was from the Rosebud Reservation, South Dakota, and they had a child who was my grandfather, and um, I tried to get it so I'd be registered so I wouldn't have to deal with it because CBS took a functional family and destroyed it. They took a family that was struggling financially because of disaster, with loss of job, and his parents passing away, and he had to liquidate the home that they lived in and take their belongings and so forth. So it was, and plus I was doing all this without an attorney. I did not recognize that you need an attorney to take care of these matters because they have the knowledge and the means of how to navigate through CPS because it's very complex. It's very, they're not transparent. There's no watchdogs on them. The money they get, they hope they are adopted because they're adopted. The money comes in to the agency to their 18, to the child's 18. So if they get a child of 4 or 5 and he's adopted, they're going to get that money forever because very little money is given to the foster parents. Social
And
services.
to add to what you're saying too, um, the child too can during the time that that child is separated, whether it's a temporary separation between the child and the parent, plus if it's going to be a permanent separation because the parent was terminated and then broadcast for adoption. A lot of times, and I've seen this because I did this with my children, they'll say the child's not sleeping, let's put them in medication. And that's an additional amount of funds that the state gives to those families because the child needs, pills for sleeping and now needs pills to go to stay up. And unfortunately, a lot of these children become victims to that, right? They
The money is so exaggerated. My son, one of my 3 children, I have a young son, was put temporary in foster care, and the foster care had to use up the money they're getting from the social services. So they bought him 100 pairs of socks. And my son shows, I said, why do you need all these socks? He said, well, they gave them to me. I find out that they would lose the money or something if they didn't spend it. So they went and bought all these socks. There's no tracking of the funds. I mean, it's $1 billion business. And where I was going to, the CPS, uh, the guy who's the head honcho, lived in a Taj Mahal of a place, and the managers and all the executives that there. And my social worker, who was only in her early 20s, got a bonus so she could buy her Gucci purses and her BMW car because they were giving bonuses and extra money and so forth. And at age 22, you don't know much about how to put a family back together or how to deal with a family and things like that. I think another way it should be a mentor. People that get involved in social service should be a mentor for 10 years, meaning they have to work their way to be a full time worker and be able to have the understanding and the needs to take care of the parents. And there should be a watchdog group of professional individuals that should keep track of how the money's spent and where the money is spent. And there should be.
And you'll be surprised too, though, because whenever we were going to trial, my attorney, the one that I hired to represent me at the civil court level, he pulled the book, right? He pulls the book of what is expected of CPS, of what are the policy that CPS needs to be following, what is expected of them, how they're supposed to behave and respond. Like, they have a book to follow. they don't just do things. Oh well, let's figure it out as we go. No, they have a book. They have rules. There is what's called orders and compliance that they need to follow.
But they
And
don't. They
unfortunately,
don't
a lot
follow
of
the orders. They don't follow the thing because one of the things that they're supposed to do is called family reunification. They're supposed to have a plan where the kids are put in temporary custody if they have to be separated from the parents, and they should first be with family members, aunts, uncles, grandmothers, those kinds of things, or friends, and so forth, before they put into group homes or into foster care. And they're supposed to be able to have a goal ahead that's supposed to take it. Now, the courts here are very corrupt. And what I mean by that, my judge had no experience in family members. He was a collision car damage judge. I mean, he could do civil cases regarding car damage, but he knew nothing about family. And then I find out that the attorneys they appoint you, public defenders, are worthless because they're carrying 20 cases at once and they have very little time and very little experience. And then everybody's
yeah,
a pal, everybody's a friend in the court. The social worker golfs with the judge, the lawyers for the social worker golfs with that guy. It's like a big party system. And this being election
yeah.
year, I think all of us should go out and vote for judges as well as for the offices like the president of the United States. But we need to elect our officials, and judges are not appointed; they are uh, picked and voted in, and you need to get some that are family in there. So we need to make a lot of changes in there. Um, what I'm hearing from you, though, you have a success story, and you're the first one, and I think I've done about 200 of these that I've heard that have had a success story at the end. Though it ruined your life for how many years does it take you? 4 years?
4 years, yes, sir.
Yeah, so it took you 4 years of your life.
4 years now.
Mine was 3 years, and I don't know if you call it success. My two boys were returned, and one boy, he's 12. He says, "I'm tired of all this. I want to go home." The other boy, who turned 18, says, "Hey, I'm 18. I want to go home." Our daughter, that was the sad point, was so convinced that life would be better to be adopted, she divorced her parents. And that means you divorce your brothers, you divorce your grandmother, your grandfather. She changed her name and everything else. So it's a sad thing because we had a total function family. I mean, we were involved in school heavily. There were A students. We did sports with them. We were active in open house and going to school, meeting with the teachers, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. There was nothing in there, but we didn't know that you have to battle allegations from family members that want to take our kids away. And they really, her family, my wife's family, really neglected her and really abused her. She had hot coffee poured on her as a punishment. She had hot water from the bathtub put on her as a punishment. They almost drowned her one time and she couldn't swim. Then her brother molested her sexually, which is wrong. And the parents didn't protect her. Then she was allowed to go to a concert at 15 and she got raped. Her sister, who was supposed to watch after her, who was over 18, didn't protect her. She was too high on drugs and didn't know what she was doing. So she was there. And then she had a relationship, a date where she got raped again. And so, the outcome of it is me and my wife have met, and we have three beautiful children, but two of them have been returned, but they're still psychologically affected by all this. It really hurts my children to this day right now. They're still fighting it. It doesn't go away. So here it is. These kids loved the home we lived in, loved the family lifestyle. Then we had to sell my home, and we lose the home, and I'm having a terrible time trying to rebuild my life at the age of 74, but I'm still trying. So I will get a job that pays enough to buy a home and take care of my family. And right now, my family is four people. So um, that will come back in there. Now, um, I have a comment here from Maria Garcia. I had my kids taken away when we are protect them always. Yeah, I am sorry to hear that, Mario Garcia. Mario, can you call in tomorrow Can you call in 888 and ask to be on the show, and they'll let you. Um, Pixie, I keep calling you Pixie. I don't know if that's your name, but um, I want you. I want to thank you and God bless you because my show is almost over. I'm just out of my time. It's a 1 hour show, so
Okay.
um, I want to thank you for taking time. But you can call in again and share your story. That number 888 is the number to call in and just say Bob Pace sent you there. And so,
Okay.
um, Mario, uh, I know how you feel, and you came in right at the closing of the show here. But listen tomorrow. I'll be on again at 10 a.m. and again at 7 in the evening Pacific Standard Time. I'm here in California, and I'm 7 days a week, and I try to share stories that helps other people. Hopefully, people learn something from my sharing my heartaches and from Pixie sharing hers. And Mario, we look forward to hearing from you tomorrow. So thank you again, Pixie. Good luck with your matter, and God bless everybody. And have a
Thank
very
you.
happy and successful New Year. And this is Bob Pace signing off.
Thank you. God bless you too. My
Yeah,
pleasure.
yeah. I just have to end the show first.